Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday.
Happy
Yay,
Monday, everyone.
Monday.
So today's guest, we got a doozy. Sanaz Tahernia. She's a journalist and TV news anchor from KRON 4 News in San Francisco. She is also a licensed lawyer in California, and she used to be a litigator, originally from LA, and you have your JD and master's in journalism. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You have a JD and then you have a master's in journalism. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's
Obviously,
right.
you have a
That's
JD
right.
in journalism because that just makes no sense. This is why you can't have tiny scripts for me.
Well, I'm sorry that you're very old and your eyes can't see.
Bolded font, please.
Hold
So,
on.
Sanaz, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
So before we dive in, what do we have to drink today?
Our Noosh of the
Our
week.
Noosh of the week.
Rosé all day.
Rosé.
Rosé all day. I like that.
Cheers.
Yes. Cheers.
Rosé.
Cheers, Salamati.
We went fancy with ours and put blueberries in them.
I love it.
I was telling Sanaz
Oh.
before recording, I'm not a rosé person, but I always see people put little fruits in it, like raspberries, or Arta was saying raspberries or pomegranate.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me spice it up to make it cute.
There you go. You have your blueberries too. Nice.
I got blueberries too.
I
let me
ate the blueberries.
Oh, I like to eat them.
I let it soak it in a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
rookie mistake. So also something that was also very small in the script. Sanaz also loves dogs, gummy bears, and warm weather.
So
This is very true.
come to Florida. What are you doing over there? Florida has the warm
Right.
weather.
I actually do love Miami. What are you guys in Miami?
Yeah, Armagan and I are right
From
now
the-
sitting in Miami Beach.
We're in Miami Beach right now. And then
And I'm
Love.
up in Palm Beach.
Yeah,
So
I
I've-
love South
I've-
Beach and the Miami Beach area.
Yeah, I live about 30 minutes north of Miami Beach. Arta lives about 45 to 50 minutes north. So all in the
take.
we're
same
like
vicinity.
we're split between the three counties.
I'm
exactly.
dead center between them.
I
Yeah.
love it. No, I pre-COVID, I would try to come to Miami as often as possible. But right now,
Well, I'm it's a free for
Stay
all.
away. It's crazy here.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it's like the pandemic's not happening down here. Come on over.
I've seen on social media. I've seen.
Spring break has had a lingering effect.
Oh yeah, it was wild.
So, Sanaz, simple question. Who are you?
Who am I? I mean, you guys kind of broke it down for me. I'm a journalist in San Francisco. I'm just a Persian girl trying to survive, still under my parents' rule, even though I'm 40.
Feel that.
Still
Yeah,
a
I
little
don't-
baby.
I feel
Always,
that.
will always be the little baby. And my dad
Yeah.
tells me that repeatedly. I don't live with them anymore, but I'm always going to be little Sanazi for them. So yeah, just a journalist, basically trying to move in my career. I made a career change a few years ago, went back to school, as you mentioned, graduated with my master's in 2016, working in local news, kind of trying to move to like the national level. And as I'm saying this, I kind of realized that I feel like Persian people, we kind of identify with what we do and really nothing else. So,
Right.
So when you ask me, who am I? That's the answer I have for you.
Aside from the dogs, gummy bears, and warm weather.
Aside from all that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's really funny because I think a lot of people do that where when you say, who are you? They're like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And
Well,
you
Yeah,
just
they
say,
automatically refer to their
Well,
career.
it's a
Yeah.
cultural
Yeah.
thing. Like, when I was younger, many years ago, when I was like a teenager, you would randomly meet an Iranian that you had never, seen or heard of before, and they
Mhm.
immediately ask you, what does your dad do?
Yeah.
What's your last name? What does he do?
Yeah. Chikara.
It's so true. Mom, but what's Kian from in it? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's standard.
Yeah.
It's standard.
All right, so we're gonna start nitpicking your bio now, who you are.
Okay.
Go through it little by
Yeah,
little.
yeah. Go ahead.
So we'll start with if you could walk us through a day in your life as a journalist right now, and then after that, maybe go through a day in your life, what it used to be like as a lawyer.
Okay, so right now as a journalist, for my station, before I used to be a reporter, so I'd be out in the field. Now I exclusively anchor, so I'm at the desk in the studio. Yeah, I mean, I typically just go in and, well, my day, since I'm on TV, your day is very heavily focused on the way you look. So the first thing of the day is just pop out the war paint case and just put your face on, get the hair ready, get that pageant hair going. But then when I get into the station, it comes down to kind of just becoming aware of the stories that are kind of happening for the day. And I think that almost starts also when you wake up. Immediately you pick up your phone and you start seeing all these notifications, all the push notifications on your phone from all the different news organizations. Unfortunately, it's like who died, what city got bombed, what person got arrested. It's always death and destruction, which is very anxiety inducing, but I mean, I guess you kind of just make do. So you take those big national stories, you also read up on local stories that, you know, my station, for example, is reporting on in the morning. You look at what the other stations are reporting on. A lot of the stuff I just get online on my phone to just kind of be ready to discuss the stories that you're going to cover. You get into the station and immediately there is a editorial meeting. So all the producers, the assignment desk people, our managers, all of us get on a call. Before it used to be around a conference table. Right now it's on a Teams call. So we all just kind of sit down and we talk about what they call the lead story, which is the story that basically starts every newscast. So today's lead story, for example, was the suspects that were arrested in the Kristen Smart missing persons case that happened here back in 1996 in one of the colleges over in San Luis Obispo. They arrested them yesterday. They're charging them with murder today. So that was like the big story.
Wow.
So every day it changes. Yeah, every day it changes. But that's the big story for the day. That's what you start the newscast with. You start everything before the first break is all the major stories. And then as the newscast goes on, it changes. But basically you sit down, come up with your stories, help the producers, you know, stack a show, and by stacking, I mean the order in which stories are going to be read and presented. You assign stories to the reporters and you just start writing scripts. And really, that's really what it comes down to. Your entire day is focused on a particular newscast. So Mondays and Tuesdays, I anchor the 3 p.m. newscast and the 7 p.m. So I'm pretty much just reading scripts and editing scripts. But Wednesday through Friday is a day where I'm basically on all day. And I do live segments at the top of every hour. If a story breaks, I'm live immediately. We'll have interviews. There's a lot going on in TV news. From on Wednesdays to Fridays, I'm on effectively from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So it's back and forth. Between the back and forth, I'm also working on what we call a package, which is a story. My story today was to basically put together a 90-second to 2-minute piece on the charges that were brought against the two guys in the Kristen Smart case. So between the running back and forth and going to do a segment and interviewing, I'm also sitting down and editing video and writing a script, sending my scripts to my executive producer for approval. It's a lot.
Jam-packed day. Well,
definitely need my wine.
So let me ask you, I know you have, I guess, some creative flexibility on how you want to deliver the story, but do you have any, maybe as a journalist you did more, but as an anchor now, do you have any flexibility on stories you guys talk about, or is it kind of just the delivery you have control over?
There is some flexibility. You obviously, that's why we have the meeting. We kind of, bounce ideas off one another. One person thinks one story is more important than the other. It ultimately comes down to what management says and what the news cycle across the board, that also kind of dictates what is going to be presented. If you're assigned a story, there's a main focus of a story. So today, for example, I'm going to use the story I did was the charges in the case. I could use my creative license in determining how I want to present that focal point of the story. But you just have to make sure you keep those material bits of information in to keep the story relevant and accurate in the way it was, for example, presented in the press conference.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So as long as you get the main chunk, the focal point out, you can kind of fluff it a little bit on the sides to how you present it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely be creative. Creativity is also kind of encouraged in storytelling because you don't want to just be spitting out facts. Spitting out
like
facts
a robot.
Is almost, exactly. So if you can use some creativity, if you have the time to use creativity and the resources to kind of be able to implement creativity into your story, it's encouraged because obviously you want to keep the viewer engaged. Nothing is more boring than just kind of like bullet points of facts. So
right.
And it's funny because everybody always has their favorite like anchor on their local news. Like for me growing up, like I would always have the favorite meteorologist or anchor, the one that was funny and would spit jokes, be a little more creative than the person that just sits there and reads the news.
Well, the anchor, the weatherman that I grew up with on the local thing here, he was arrested and shunned from all. I'm not going to discuss his charges because they were just heinous. It was really bad. It was really bad.
I mean, there's personality and then there's that.
Oh, God. That's not what I meant. That's something too.
So yeah, I mean, he should rot in hell. But you have a lot of range here. Florida's weird. Florida's weird.
It's Florida. Yeah, Florida. I mean, they always say that the crazy news comes out of Florida. So
for sure. So now that you've told us about your job now, that sounds super hectic, but I'm sure it was much different than what you used to do as a lawyer. So maybe go into how that was like on a day-to-day basis.
It is very hectic, but I will say there's something to be said about doing something that you love, because if you actually do something you love, that hectic, the chaos of the day, as chaotic as everything can be, it's not as negatively impactful.
It's more rewarding.
Like, you may want to kill someone at work. That happens regularly, but at the end of the day, you feel like, you know what, this is a job that I want to do. And that's basically where I am with my career, because I kind of wanted to go into journalism since I was a kid. Culturally, you kind of become a doctor or a lawyer if you're Persian. That wasn't really my path. So.
Right. The 3 prerequisite jobs, doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Exactly. And so now that I'm doing what I love, there are days where, I'm not going to lie. There are days that I come home in tears because I'm so just inundated with just everything, but it's a very, very different vibe than when I was practicing law. So when I was practicing law, I would start my days in court. I would be in court. I would be litigating motions, to dismiss, motions to compel. I'd be going in for pre-trial motions. If you want to talk about the chaos, not as chaotic in terms of going back and forth and doing 9 million things. As a lawyer, you're essentially you sit down, and you work on your case. If you have a motion or you have an opposition, you kind of just work on your case. There's a lot of work to be done, but you're not going 90 miles an hour in 45 million directions. Despite that, I can't even tell you how much I hated law. I thought it was going to be interesting because criminal law I actually find to be very interesting, but I didn't go the criminal route. I went the civil route. And even if I had gone the criminal route, it's not the kind of work that I wanted to necessarily be in. So there were days, I always joke about this, but it's funny, but it's not. But I remember, so I worked in Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. Traffic and commute is like a given in your day. And I just remember in the mornings, I would sit in the car by myself and I'd be listening to music. And I can't tell you how many mornings I used to just tell myself, like, if I just drove my car into the center divider, I wouldn't have to go in today. So,
oh my God.
Get an example of music that was playing.
That intense.
It was that intense. And it was like, if I ever enjoyed what I was doing as a lawyer, it was never because I enjoyed the work. It was more because I enjoyed the people with whom I worked. My dad used to tell me, like, Sanaz, I'll give you money, go open your own firm. Then I'm like, nah, like, the last thing I'm going to do is take however many tens of thousands of dollars from you that I know are just going to go down the drain because I'm not even passionate about this. So my day-to-day as a lawyer sucked.
So why did you do law in the first place?
So just like Arta said, you have 3 options. You have engineering, you have medicine.
So it's going back to the overbearing and the controlling and the not, you can't make your own decision your entire life thing.
I'll tell you, it's not necessarily that I couldn't make my own decision. My mom will sit there and tell you her dad didn't let her, but it's not that my dad didn't let me. Anytime I'd come up with a certain career that I wanted to do, it wasn't like I was, tied down, but it was kind of like, that's not going to get you anywhere. When I was like,
they say it's fine, but how many famous journalists come out of school? And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not getting support for that. Maybe I should do something else. And I grew up in a super, super academic house. My brother was like the brain of the family. So I was like trying to keep up with the Joneses with him too. So I can't say that anyone forced me to go into law, but it was something that I felt like culturally, familially, just all of that just pushed me in that direction. And I just reached a point in my life where I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
So here's another random law question.
Yes.
What TV or movie lawyer would you say you emulated the best, or you resonated with the best?
I will say you remind me of one. I've seen few shows with lawyers, but she reminds me of, I forgot her name on the show.
On what show?
But on Suits.
On Suits? Oh.
I don't know who that is. It's funny because I never really watched Lawyers growing up. I only started watching it later, you know, and like, it was never my thing. I will say SVU is one of my favorite. No, SVU is my favorite though. Law and Order.
SVU is really good.
Well, how many years were you a lawyer? Marathon. Until you...
I was a lawyer for 5 or 6 years. I did.
Wow.
Yeah. I did government liability defense for the first 3 years of my career. We represented the LA County sheriffs in like violations of civil rights and excessive force cases, which is so relevant right now, out of the jails, out of the LA County jail system. And after that, I basically went into business litigation. Horrible.
Still,
my eyes glazed over for those years. Yeah, it was really bad.
So did you not like it when you were in school for it too, or was the actual day-to-day job? Okay, so you didn't like it at all. Okay, so you hated it from the start.
So she hated her entire career choice from the time she went to college to the time she started doing journalism.
Yeah, can I tell you, I actually, after my first year, so I spent my entire first year, every night I would call my mom in tears. Like, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I don't understand this. And she just reached a point. She said, Sanaz, if you're unhappy, drop out. And I was like appalled. I'm like,
I'm not
going to do that.
You're giving me that, really?
But you know, that's not a real option. Right. No, so after my first year, I actually did consider dropping out. But I was also like, all right, well, I'm 30,000 deep in loans right now. I might as well finish. And that just kind of like carried on into like, oh, well, I finished law school. I might as well take the bar. Oh, I passed. I might as well start working. So that's basically, it was like avalanche into that.
Snowball effect. Yeah.
So this is kind of redundant because it says on the bio that your license is still active. Do you want to go back? I'm assuming no.
Can I tell you, when I changed careers, I was like, so done with law that I was like, I'm gonna stop paying my dues. Like I was like doing the exact opposite. Like I go commit a crime. Like that's how against being a lawyer I was. My dad was like, absolutely not. I will pay your dues. You have to keep it active. So I inactivated my license for like 6 months. And then I was like, I kind of came to terms and started like being like, all right, son, I was like, let's just calm down a little bit. So my license is active still, not because I want to practice.
Just backup. It's just
have it as backup in case. Yeah,
exactly. So,
but your story of like calling your mom and crying every night in college and wanting to drop out and going for it anyway, I feel like that's like a lot of us Iranians, but also kids of like first generation kids of immigrants go through the same thing. We all have that like one job that we choose because it's one of the pre-approved ones. We go for it. We want to quit, but we don't do it because we already started. I'm saying this because I did the same thing. I went for engineering. I hated it. Every night I would come home and cry to my dad and be like, I don't understand anything. I don't want to do this, but I'm already halfway through. I don't want to quit. And then you kind of get stuck in it.
So how did your family react when you said, I'm going into this? Did you just rip the Band-Aid off one day, or was it like a slow?
They're like, we don't know. You're not our daughter.
They're like, Sanaz, who? No, it was a slow progression to like a Band-Aid rip. So what happened was, so the LA County, law world is just very saturated. I got my first job when the economic recession hit, basically 2008. So after a couple of years, they cut down. They were downsizing because I worked with a private firm that contracted with the county. They were downsizing. I got cut. I got another job. I was working in a transactional firm on the litigation team of like 3 people. There wasn't much in terms of litigation. They cut people. I got cut again. So there was like 2 periods of time where I was unemployed. My third firm that I worked for, I was brought on contract terms. And then after about a month or so, they brought me on as a full-time associate. Like 2 months later, the partners got into some sort of fight. And one of them, I was closer with one of them, kind of like on a more friendly basis with one of them. And he was just like, yes, and I was like, Matt and I are basically dissolving the partnership. I kind of wanted to give you a heads up so you can go look for another job. And that was like kind of like the turning point in my career where I was just like, I could sit here and look for another job and spend I don't know how long sending out how many applications, sending out how many cover letters, getting interviews, not getting interviews, or I could try to figure out something else to do with my life. So literally I was in bed one night and I was just like, Google, what do I need to do to go back to journalism school? So I always thought that like journalism school was like a 4-year program. I thought like I had to have a background in it. I didn't know anything.
Right.
Turns out you don't need any of that.
Google knows everything for you. You just gotta ask it politely.
Google is the key to life. So literally that night I Googled what are like the top schools in the nation for journalism. And the next morning I signed up for the GRE. I send a text message. Yeah, it was because I had to do it quickly because the GRE was like a month later and I was leaving to Europe. And the day after the GRE and applications had to be in while I was gone. So I was like, all right, I got to act fast. Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like act now or wait until the following year. So I sent a group message.
Grave with regret.
Basically, get shunned.
Drive the car off.
So I sent a text message, a group text to my family and basically like, hey guys, like no intro, nothing. I'm taking the GRE in like 3 weeks. Immediately, I got a call from my dad. He's like, Yanichi, like, what do you mean you're taking the GRE? I don't understand. And I was like, no, Dad, I told him the whole situation about the law firm. And I was like, I just don't want to go through the whole process of looking for another job. I don't want to deal with the stress. I don't want to have to deal with unemployment again. And then immediately he's like, what if you don't get into any of the schools? And I just told him, I was like, first of all, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Right. Second of all, if that happens, I'll somehow, I just can't go back to law. I'm like, I hated it so much. I will go get coffee for the vice president of the station every day just to get my foot into the door.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, it was like, I was like, I am not going back to this. So I actually didn't know until relatively recently that they were all having like a bit of a panic attack for a very, very long period of time, but no one ever really communicated it to me because they're like, Sanaz is like, she's doing her own thing. My brother, my mom, I mean, everyone was just like, what is she doing with her life? Because then after I stopped working, basically, after I stopped working at the firm, I was like, I'm going to go work at Lululemon. Let me go get discounts while I apply it to schools because I was just like, you know how you go from one thing to the next?
What would it have been like if you're working at Lululemon and one of your old clients just happened to walk in?
It's like, what happened to you?
At that point, I was so happy to be out of law.
Wow.
That I would have been like, what size do you need these yoga pants?
Yeah,
like I was so happy to be out of it. I was also teaching fitness classes at the time, so it kind of like worked.
Do you still have a Lululemon discount is the question here?
I don't. I thought about going back part-time. I don't.
That's the thing you should have kept active.
Unfortunately, you need to actually work there to have the discount. But yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of kind of just doing something different. And it's funny because my mom later told me we had family friends calling my mom and being like, this isn't a life for Sanaz. She needs to figure out what she's doing. She can't go work at Lululemon. In Zendegi kina shud. And I'm just like, First of all,
it seems like everybody has your life figured out.
Sounds so familiar.
Except me, apparently.
Except you, yeah. They have all the answers.
That's hilarious.
So,
I know she keeps talking. She keeps talking, and I'm like, "This is my life." Everything you're saying.
Go to
Lululemon. Take the next step.
I think maybe
I can put in a good word for you.
Quit my job. Listen,
let's just get out of here. Let these two dads are there and call it a day.
Why are we even here?
You can call me.
I've been wanting a pair of Lululemons for like a year now, and I'm just so cheap to go in there and get a pair.
I have 2 Lululemon shirts.
Sure. I don't want your Lululemon shirts. I want my own, like.
Yeah, the fit's gonna be a little different.
Just a little bit.
So yeah, I mean, that's basically what happened. I was just like, I ended up taking the GRE. I ended up sending out my applications. I did horrible on the math, by the way. And I got into 4 out of the 5 schools that I applied to. And I decided, okay, let's do this. And I just basically went back to living like a student, which was a little difficult financially, but again, you kind of do everything. Yeah, I went to school in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so that was okay.
Really different.
Yeah.
Boston's not a cheap city.
No, it's not. I'd gotten into a school I got into USC's journalism program, but it was also kind of like, I had been in LA for so long. I was like, let me go somewhere else. I was like, how often am I going to be going to Boston for anything? So I was like, their school is amazing. Let's go to Boston.
For somebody that likes warm weather, you You picked the cold one.
I also lived in Chicago. I don't know. I'm somewhat of a masochist.
Learning so much.
Feels.
What advice would you give to people that want to switch their careers? Because obviously you did it so like on a whim.
Just tell your parents after you do it.
Yeah.
I will
Don't give them
say,
a
I
panic
think
attack.
if you're Persian, tell your parents after you make that decision. And just knowing how Persian parents are, I talked to like my non-Persian friends, and I'm like, because this is the thing for non-Persian people, Americans specifically. I had the support of my parents. I have like a ton of student loans even before I went back to school. Living like a student in Boston isn't easy, especially when I was unable to defer one of my student loans. So financially, my parents did help me a lot. My first job out of school paid $30, and
nothing, especially when you have student loans from law school and then.
Yeah. So journalism, especially when you're talking about the smaller markets where you have to start before you can get up to places like San Francisco and LA and New York, you're not getting paid a ton of money. And just the fact that I had to pay rent, my car, all of that, and my student loans, I am so grateful to my parents. And the reason I say that Persian people should do it after, because if you tell them before you do it, they're going to convince you not to do it. But if you do it, because they're Persian and they feel an obligation to their children, which I mean, they should, they will help you to the extent that they can.
It's how you present it. If you come with it confident, then they'll support you. But if you're like wishy-washy, they'll try to like help you stray away from it.
And that's the thing. And my parents I think most Persian parents are very conservative. They just want, they probably went through so
stability.
much.
Just know that like you're stable and can be on your 2 feet,
Exactly.
Not every day calling Bubba, I need money.
Exactly. So I think that's what my parents were most concerned about. It was like, oh, if she goes to school and she doesn't make it, what is she going to do? But like they saw how happy I was and basically how not made it, but like I've come this far so far. So they're now confident in my decision, in the decision that I made, but it took a little bit to get here.
You kind of have to prove to them, like show them the plan and then kind of have that aha moment of like, look, I'm actually doing
especially as a Persian girl.
Yeah.
Because Persian guys, I think, have a little more weight in what they say. Whether it's warranted or not is a different story. But I think
for
as
them,
Persian girls, they're more concerned.
It's like the end goal. They want to see the finished result, and I don't think they care so much about the process, how you get there.
Yeah.
But as long as
help
you get
to the extent they can. Yeah.
So Sanaz, going back into journalism, you started off as a reporter, and then you had to go into the station. How did the pandemic now affect your day-to-day at work? Did you still have to go into the news station, especially California, one of the states that got hit the hardest and with the lockdown and everything?
We were one of the hardest hit states. San Francisco was the first city in the country to implement a lockdown. For me,
I remember that.
I remember that too as well.
Big talk about the Warriors and whoever's game is going to be with no fans, and it's going to be this crazy thing.
Yeah, they've been the most conservative. We locked down the longest, or we were the first ones to lock down, and I think we stayed lockdown for the longest. Like even when LA was like in what they call the orange tier, they had this color-coded tier system for reopening. LA's cases were way worse than us here in San Francisco, but San Francisco was very hesitant on kind of like pulling back on the restrictions. As far as work goes, I have been exclusively anchoring for about 2 years now. So for me, going in every day has been a thing. A lot of anchors at the other stations were anchoring from home. So they would send them home with equipment, a ring light and all that stuff, and they would anchor from home. For us, they basically staggered our schedule. So we were working for 2 days and then off for 2 days and then back on for 2 days. So there was less of us in the newsroom. So for us, nothing really changed other than our working days. I was still going in. We have plexiglass and stuff up everywhere. But I do know for the reporters that are out in the field, they're not doing as many in-person interviews. So a lot of their interviews are via Zoom, and a lot of stories that you see on TV aren't so many, mic in the face type interviews. It's more just like this, like screens and like Zoom interviews. So it's changed it that way. A lot of people lost their jobs in other industries, the news industry, not as much, but a couple of stations, a couple of networks did, thankfully not mine, but a couple of networks did implement a bunch of layoffs too.
Okay. So not as bad of a change, some minor differences and updates to sanitary, I guess.
Exactly.
And so how has it affected your mental health, with all the reporting of sickness and death, past 2 years now that you've done? Did you add any new routines to your day-to-day to help cope with it, not only dealing with the pandemic personally, but also having to report on it?
Well, personally, as someone who I've dealt with depression and like severe anxiety, just basically I suffer from mental health problems, here and there. It's been a huge part of my life over the last 20 years of my life. News is just always anxiety inducing to begin with, but then once you kind of
add another aspect to it,
and it's not even just like a regular aspect, it's just like everything became COVID related. Like I have a tech segment and that had to be put on pause because everything was COVID, death, all this stuff. So that just,
there was no other news.
Nothing.
No other news. Nothing. And it,
like March, April, and May of last year, it was all just COVID. Everything.
And it sucked because a lot of stories that would have normally been reported kind of fell to the wayside because of it. And it's just because COVID was just such the big story, and so that kind of tapped into my anxiety a little bit. So what I stopped doing is basically like when I'd leave the station or I'd leave work, I wasn't tuning into news anymore. I had to disconnect. So waking up and like immediately looking at my phone, there was a lot less of that. Even during the pandemic, I was ready to go in unprepared or ready to go in to kind of just prepare myself in 5 minutes and go in less prepared than I normally would.
What we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
You were going to talk about
the same subject.
Spikes and surges and death rates and ICUs being full. It's just name the hospital, name the percentage, and just plug and play. Essentially, that's what news felt like.
Exactly.
We're updating numbers.
For a few months.
And I turned off a lot of notifications on my phone too because I just couldn't deal with it anymore.
It just also felt like it wasn't getting better. It just was progressively getting worse every day. Like we were all in that period where we didn't know when it was going to stop.
The term that went away very quickly, flatten the curve.
Oh my God, yeah.
No, the best is when everyone would talk about like, oh, in 2 months we should be good. No, the 2 months turned into 12.
What do you mean?
2 weeks.
By Easter.
Oh yeah.
By Easter.
The Easter Bunny will solve our problems.
Yeah, the Easter Bunny caught COVID too. That was the problem.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that.
Yeah, drink to that one. Never by Easter.
Exactly. So I mean, yeah, the news cycle did change. It's going back to normal somewhat. And I just stopped being so, immersed in it. Also, dealing with the previous administration too was very frustrating. Just because not even on a political front, but more so just people refusing to accept what was happening. And you still kind of see that right now. But it was just like, and I'm sure you guys in Florida were dealing with that a lot because I mean, obviously we see the news here. And so it's, it's people, the anti-maskers and all of that. And so that was, I think also, I'm fortunate in that I live in a city that's been super, super compliant and respectful of other people and, just kind of following the guidelines that the CDC has put forward. But I know that a lot of cities across the country have not been like that, but we would hear about it. And I was just because I'm just like, I don't understand.
Right.
Like, do you want someone to die? Do you want your family member to die? So
I want to say,
I think Florida was all of like 2 weeks that were locked down.
I want to say people that were immigrants or children of immigrants took it a little more seriously than a lot of others. Because it's like this is just
we're very family based, right? So we're surrounded by a lot of family members, elder people.
I mean, I wasn't born here, so to come to this country, you got to get a set of vaccines. You got to have certain shots and certain checkups and everything before you could even get a green card or papers or whatever it is to enter the country. And a lot of people who don't have any immigrants in their family or weren't immigrants themselves don't understand that a vaccine is not a big deal. It's
the thing that I find to be really funny is like they're going to be putting a microchip in you. It's like if you have a smartphone, if you're on Facebook, if you use Google Maps to figure out where you're going, you're getting tracked. A vaccine
We're
is not
all
going to make a
getting-
difference in
we're
your
all
life.
getting
We're all getting tracked.
The smartphone sees, hears, I mean,
Oh,
targeted
no,
ads.
No, my favorite is I have a lock on my phone so they can't track me.
Oh
That's
my
favorite one.
God. No.
That's my favorite one.
No.
Or if you delete your text messages, they can't pull it up.
It's like, unless you're on a Canon string or you don't use any sort of internet anywhere, you're getting tracked. So it's not going to be a vaccine that's going to do it.
Okay, so I kind of went into this, but maybe some advice that you would give, kind of we're switching back and forth now.
Right.
Advice you would give people that specifically want to become a journalist, and maybe touch on the things that you've learned so far in this field, some mistakes you made and learned from, things you wish you did differently.
To become a journalist, I think you kind of have to, like, for me, I tried to do it without going to school because obviously school is not cheap. I tried to get into, I wasn't so informed. Like, I knew that I had to get into a station. I didn't realize that I had to start in a small market, right? You have to start. My first job was in a city called Bangor in Maine, right?
Oh,
I didn't even know it existed. Exactly.
Never heard of it.
So,
you know how I know that city? They talked about it on the Mighty Ducks movies. That's how I know Bangor, Maine.
No idea.
Yes.
Wow. You just showed your age.
You see, I didn't watch that movie, so it's fine. So like, I didn't even know it existed. But like, if I knew what I know now, actually, I don't know if I would have gotten into a station at that point, because they do want a specific set of skills when you go in. I wanted to try to get in and just work my way up. I had this image of like, oh, if I get in, they'll just see how good of a speaker I am and they'll put me on. It's not like that. It is absolutely not like that.
You got to grind your way up.
You do have to grind, and it's a grind. I've been very, very fortunate. My first job, I didn't sign a contract, so I was out of there in 5 months. And then I moved to Reno for a 3-year contract that I ended up breaking to come to San Francisco. You don't typically see a move from market, because the market's all ranked by number, market 156 to market 6 in a year and a half. So I've been very, very fortunate. A lot of people, you sign contracts and you're bound by these contracts. I mean, it's like, and that was another thing. My parents helped me break the contract at my second station. Otherwise I'd still be in Reno.
I mean, you're a lawyer. You break it, go around the loopholes.
Just having a law degree doesn't absolve you from obligations.
By the way, do you know I have a license?
I feel like it allows you to read something with a different perspective.
100%, but you're still bound by terms in a contract.
Yeah.
You know, so
typically, how long are they? The contracts?
Typically 2 years, depending on what a reporter contract is. Typically 2 years. If you're going into an anchor position in a higher market, you could be looking at a 5 or 6 year contract.
Oh wow.
Oh wow.
Time.
Yeah, and some stations don't have an out, or if they have an out, you have to pay a penalty. It's a whole thing. It's a grind. I think anything that you do, if anything you want to be successful in anything, you have to be willing to work hard. And that's why I think it's so important that you do something that you love, because if you don't love what you do, you're not going to put your all into it. And that grind is going to go from a grind to a very soft rub. Like, it's not going to take you everywhere or anywhere really. And also just kind of learn more about the industry. I Googled it and I was like, all right, well, this is where I'm applying. This is where I'm taking the GRE, and this is what I'm going to do. You know, if for me in school, I had classmates that came into the program wanting to be on air and then deciding halfway through, I don't want to do this. I want to be a producer and behind the scenes. So it's like, if you can kind of reach out to people in the industry, I think that's the easiest way. If you're not going to take a school route, reach out to people in the industry. A lot of people are willing to speak to, you know, people that would need some guidance. I know whenever anyone reaches out to me, I'm always very, very willing to talk to them, because I'm like, you know what, I was in their position at one point. So try to inform yourself as much as you can about the industry, learn about it as much as you can, and expect for it to not be fun for a very long time. But then it becomes fun. So
yeah, like you said, I think that's with everything that you do. You're pretty much always going to start at the bottom, and you're going to have to work really hard in your way up. But it's a difference of, if you love it, it's not as painful to work your way up. But if you really don't like it, then that's how some people just remain stagnant in their careers for so long.
Unless your Amo or Dai Libs works and get a little nepotism.
But I will tell you, even the nepotism, I think, is not good, because I think as Persian
it's
people, we have
toxic.
this like sense of like entitlement of like, you know what, I just graduated, but I belong at CNN. And it's like, I look back at some of my footage from when I was at my first station. I definitely did not belong anywhere near the CNN building. I didn't need the CNN app. Like, you know, I would have wanted to make the mistakes at that smaller market than if I'm at a larger market and there's more people watching me.
Yeah.
You know, you said, and you don't have to go into this at all, because I know breaking contracts, I'm sure there's some NDA or something, maybe, I don't know. But I'm just imagining your parents walking into the station with Chai Shirini. I said, please let our daughter go. That's what I'm picturing. I don't want to picture anything else.
If it was in LA, maybe, but it was in Reno, and my parents don't have the halo hosela to come up with Chai Shirni in Reno. But if maybe it was in LA, they might have.
Yeah. They'll make a little road trip out of it. Pack the Nuna Paneer.
So we're gonna mark it as that's what your parents did, and that's how you're in San Francisco. That's what we're gonna mark it off.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
So, Sanaz, getting back to the journalism and your line of work, do you still see a disparity between the way men and women are treated and compensated? And have you ever come across a specific situation where you were experiencing that gender equality?
I personally, I know that it exists. I know it's very much a thing. I know that there are many reports out there that talk about the gender equality, the pay gap. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've personally witnessed it. Or maybe I just haven't noticed it. It hasn't happened to me. And if it has, because this is what I find to be unfortunate in a lot of work settings, is people are not open about what they get paid. So it's like, I don't know what my coworker who's a man is getting paid. We're under a union contract. So theoretically, you're bound by this contract. So if you're starting, you make this much, your next raise is this much, your next raise is this much.
It's all preset,
It's all preset when you're in a union. Whether that's followed, I don't know. I don't know if, like, let's say they want to offer my male counterpart more than the union contract. I don't know. I don't have those kind of discussions at work, which I think it's important to feel comfortable to have those discussions for this very reason. But again, I haven't seen anything in that way, but that's not to say it doesn't exist. It very much, I mean, people talk about it so openly. Right. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
What was the biggest difference between all the news stations that you worked for? So between your coworkers, the work environment, the cities you lived in, like, what would you say were the biggest differences that stand out? What did you like about one, dislike about one?
I think if you compare newsrooms, they're all relatively dysfunctional in their own way. It's a very chaotic environment. It depends, and a lot of it depends on how management kind of handles everything. So if you have a good manager, the chaos is minimized. It's never eliminated, but it's minimized. There's a lot more structure to the way you handle the chaos. If you do have a poor manager, then it's just, you know, it's a free for all. But for me, it was, for my first station was kind of, it was that I tend to cry a lot if I'm not happy. I started my days in tears at my first station.
That's why we have the rosé.
You two are the same person.
We're the same person, I swear. I think
we can have a chat later, you and I.
When we end, you guys continue and have a little cry session.
I mean, the anxiety, the depression, the crying. I think every day starts or ends with crying. Like, one thing could go wrong. She's looking in the
mirror.
I'm in tears. It's done.
And that was the thing. I would go into the newsroom and I'd go in the bathroom. I'd cry it out and I'd get myself together and then go sit in on a meeting. I mean, you just kind of have to do that. And it's just like, you're a grown woman, but how else do you cope? I don't know. My second station, I had a really, really good relationship with my news director. So when you have a good relationship with management, things kind of work easier for you. You know what I mean? Like,
they
kind
flow
of
better.
Exactly. Like, you're not met with so much resistance on things. This newsroom is a much larger newsroom, so there's not much of that close ties with management. You're kind of in your own world. For me, the biggest differences between the three newsrooms were just the cities they were in. Again, in Maine, living in Maine, it's a beautiful city. It just was, I'm a big city girl. So for me, living there was very, very difficult. Reno was great, but I was working the morning show in Reno. So I would wake up at 2 a.m, and I'd be at the station at 3. I'd
Wow.
leave the station at 11,
The people
and
that
I
run
would.
that run that shift. I heard like they feel like they age much quicker than
I
everybody.
was losing so much hair, so much hair. Yeah, the
Wow.
stress that it just has on your
Especially
body.
if she wants a good night's
Yeah,
sleep, go to sleep at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
right.
And I was taking like Ambien to help me sleep on the weekdays. On the weekends, I'd sleep in till 7. Like, you know what I mean? Like sleeping until 7 is unheard of. So I didn't really get to enjoy the city or have really time to do anything outside of work, because my life was really just focused on going to work, going to the gym, coming home. It was just a routine. Here in San Francisco, I started off on that early morning shift, but I've since obviously gone to a more normal human shift. But the city's obviously
on the 10 o'clock thing, you're probably in the office by 7, 8 o'clock, like a normal person, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, for the 10 o'clock thing, I'm in at 9. I go in at 9 for the 10 to 5, Wednesday through Friday. I get in at 9, get off at 5. Mondays and Tuesdays, I go in at 1, get off at 9. I mean, it's still like I have a normal life. I can go to dinners like with my boyfriend. I can go out with my friend. It's not like I have to be home at 5 so I can shower and be in bed by 6.
Force yourself to sleep, right?
Yeah, exactly. And wake up at an odd hour. I was waking up when it's dark and going to sleep when it's light, which is absolutely unnatural. So for me, between the 3 stations, it was more so the cities they were in that were the biggest difference for me.
So what I'm gonna ask you, we're gonna get out of the career stuff now. What's your favorite thing about San Francisco?
It's funny because the pandemic has ruined everything. So now when I sit here and I'm like, what should we do? I like don't even know what it's like to go do things outside of the house other than pick up food and go for a walk.
2 different worlds right now.
Oh yeah. There's almost too much to do here now.
We were at the club last night.
Were you? Which club?
No.
Club,
I'm like, oh my God, tell me. I
Club
want to
Casa.
live vicariously through you guys.
But Live is opening this weekend.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Live is opening. All other clubs are opening.
I don't know. I miss going out and listen like concerts and all that. But
okay, pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic, what did I love about San Francisco? There's just a lot to do. California is these major cities like San Francisco and LA, they're very like health conscious. So there's a lot of trails. The city is beautiful. There's a lot of like touristy stuff that you can do. You can go see the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a lot of cool restaurants. Walking around the city, I love doing. And just kind of, I created a group of friends. It took a 1 year to kind of find my friends group. And then with that friend group, it's just hanging out with friends for me is like probably one of the most things. Friends and like my boyfriend, because my family, they're down in LA. So I don't really have family up here. So my friend group up here is like my family. So just kind of being out and about. I'm a day person, my day drinking. I don't really go out at night anymore. San Francisco is not a nighttime city so much. Not that I know, at least. So yeah,
not that you've been invited to.
Yeah, I went out at night in San Francisco one time, and it was not the move.
I mean, coming from Florida, yeah. So
such a different.
And I've heard the nighttime, the after hours scene in Florida, in San Francisco's a little seedy, and I'm like, I'm okay. I'll take your word for it.
Oh, it's very seedy.
Yeah, it's. Woo, I've seen some things.
It's a world.
And in Miami, I've done the after hours scene in Miami. I've seen some things for sure, but San Francisco is a very different. We're not there. People aren't so glam here. It's a lot more of a hippie vibe out in San Francisco.
Yeah. I don't know if it snows in San Francisco, but it does in Miami. Think about that one for a second.
I was like, it does. Okay.
I'll go with it.
Arta, see, now look what you did, man. Now we gotta put the explicit content on the rating of the podcast when we post it.
Hey, you gotta have a little controversy to get the views in.
I was trying to get through one podcast where I don't have to check that box.
Why does it snow in Florida? Why does it snow?
Let me put in the Google. Cheddar.
And then all you see are people's faces like,
oh my God.
Oh my God.
You know what? Next time I'm gonna wear my Scarface shirt that says "Let It Snow." And we'll just go from there. So anyway, it's like what? Tell me you're from Miami without telling me you're from Miami or from South Florida. Yeah. So after Arta's articulation there, we're gonna get into the toughest part of the segment. Arta, you have one more question?
Right?
Yeah. I'll ask it. Sana, so you've lived in different cities, you work for different stations. Did you ever feel like you had to kind of tone down or maybe hide the fact that you're Iranian inside the professional space?
I didn't feel like I had to hide the fact that I was Iranian, but I will say when I first moved to Reno, when I lived in Maine, I had coworkers be like, and it was weird for me because I grew up in LA. I lived in New York as a child, so I've always been in like very diverse cities. My coworker was like, I've never met an Iranian person in my life. And I'm like, have you been under a rock? But you forget people in those small towns in those
I'm
states
surprised they even knew what Iran was. They usually say Iraq or something else.
That Arabs. We're all Arabs.
Arabs, right?
Arabs.
Yeah.
No, but when I moved to Reno, my news director, my boss, the boss of like basically the newsroom, he called me into his office and he was just like, yeah, it was like a month after I started working. He was like, yeah, Sanaz, I just want to let you know, like you're getting great feedback of blah, 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 this and that. But I wanted to warn you, a lot of the viewers think you're Hispanic. And once they start finding out where you're from, I just want to warn you that you may get some reaction. And I was like, it's fine. And after he told me that, and to be honest, there were a couple of instances where I was faced with some of that. I don't want to say discrimination because they weren't negative to me, but I met this older man on a story. And I remember he came out of the house because I was doing live shots right by his house. And he was just like, he comes out, he's like, hey, I watch you every morning. And so he's like, where are you from? Where's your name? Like, your name is weird. Where are you from? And I was like, I'm Iranian American. And like, it was as though I told him his house just got like raided. Like the look on his face was just like, so I obviously, continued discussion with him. And then at the end of my interaction with him, he was this cute little old man. He's like, can I give you a hug? I'm like, bring it in, Pops. But for me, it was like after my boss, definitely pre-COVID.
Oh.
But after my boss told me that, I actually became it became more of a thing for me to be very open
cautious about it. Yeah.
Not cautious, but open on my social media, talking about aid every year, talking about, posting things about Iran, posting all that stuff. Because in my mind, it was like, if I could just let these people know that there is one Iranian American person out there that is not a terrorist.
Right.
That's all they need. Just one. You just need to know that one person is not.
I usually make a bet with people. I bet them $100 that they can find me one Iranian terrorist.
Oh, wow.
But to be completely honest, I mean, at least not that we know of here in the country, but a lot of those people, their discrimination, a lot of them may stem just from not having ever met someone from that part of the world.
Or a lack of knowledge of that region.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like people in Maine, if they've never met a Persian person, people in Reno, there's a lot of vets in Reno. And so as a veteran, you may look at people from the other countries as in a certain way, Vietnam vets and Korean War vets, and I don't know, whatever they may see people in other countries in a certain light. And it's like, if they haven't interacted with people from those regions that don't fit this image in their mind, then how are they supposed to know?
Right.
They make general assumptions, group you into categories.
And you can't blame them to a degree.
Yeah, you can in a way. But I will say every time I have spoken to someone and told them Iranian, they for the most part say, oh, I know Iranian, and will always say good things about them. We'll say like they're terrific, they're great, so hospitable.
I met with someone today, American guy, and he asked me where I was from, most random thing. And I told him, and he said, I lived in Iran for 3 years, and he spoke perfect Farsi, and he hadn't lived there in 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. This is like in the middle of Fort Lauderdale.
So that's so funny because like you're saying, as long as there's one person that they've met that's Iranian that had a good impression on them, and they saw like we're nice people just like them, just trying to live a normal life.
Like think about it. He left Iran 45. He lived there for 3 years. He was a teacher, and he was telling me how last week he made June for him and his wife.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can you find this man, please? I love June.
We're gonna disagree
here.
God.
We're the same person.
Wait till we get to the.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there.
They hate on me all the time for saying June's
Don't worry, favorite. Girl. I'm here for you. I'm here for you because it's my favorite too. But we'll get to that.
Yes, but that's funny because my mom is a teacher, and one of her coworkers' husbands lived in Iran pre-revolution for 10 years, and she was like going up to my mom and saying, my husband is craving this dish he had in Iran 40 years ago. He would have it every day for lunch. and she was talking about qeimeh. She was like, he said it has like split peas and like French fries, and he wants to make it.
That's a stew I could get behind.
And my mom is like, how does your husband remember that after 40 years? And she goes, you don't understand. My husband, like his best memories of his life was living in Iran, and he always says he wants to go back. He misses the people, he misses the food. So, I mean, once you have a good interaction with Iranians.
No, this guy was talking about like all the cities in Iran like he was there yesterday.
I know. I'm saying
ridiculous.
People remember. This guy was there 40 years ago. He still remembers.
That's the impact it has on them when they're actually immersed in the culture and they know people. It has that impact because Khodashun, they don't have that.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Sanaz, now we get to the most difficult part of this whole thing.
Please.
I know we've asked some softball questions. Now we get to the hard hitting stuff.
I'm ready.
Okay, we're gonna get to the rapid
breaking news.
So I'm gonna let Armaghan.
All right, we'll start off. So rapid fire, quick answers.
Yes.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So favorite place you've traveled to?
Barcelona.
One piece of advice you'd give your 18-year-old self?
You're not fat.
Again.
Grew up in LA.
Sister.
What's one thing on your bucket list?
It used to be skydiving, but I did that. One thing on my bucket list. I don't know. Can we come back to that? Pass.
Pass. Okay, we'll give you one pass.
This isn't one of those plead the fifth type.
We've never done a pass, but we'll give you a pass. Who is your role model or inspiration?
In life or like career or
whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
I would have to say, you know what? I'll say Cristiano Amanpour.
Okay.
Who is one person that you would like to have lunch with, dead or alive?
Guys gonna ask me these questions before.
Told you they were hard.
There are harder ones.
Anderson Cooper.
Nice. Favorite museum that you visited?
Louvre.
She already answered this next one, Arta.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Just ask.
Lakers or Warriors?
Lakers.
Okay.
My Bay Area peeps may come after me for that one, but I'm a Laker girl, especially after Kobe died. I'm just like,
yeah. You gotta represent.
Well, I'm personally a Heat fan, so we got some beef with the Lakers from last year, but it's okay.
We'll handle that off camera.
It's another season, my friend. New year. What's one thing you can't leave the house without? You can't say phone, wallet, or keys.
Lip gloss. Is that another LA response? That is very much an LA response.
I was gonna guess chapstick.
I was gonna say chapstick too.
So I was gonna say chapstick, but I have this one lip gloss that kind of does both.
Okay.
It's emollient. It's very moisturizing.
Very nice.
What's one meal you can't live without?
Meal as in like a meal category or a food?
A dish.
Like they hand you a plate of food and this is your favorite.
Burger and fries.
Well, you took out one of my questions, Arta. Okay.
Well.
Hold on. Where's your favorite burger from? Let's do this too. Where do you like your go-to spot?
I don't know if you guys have it. There's a place called Habit Burger in California.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Love Habit.
So good.
Love. So good.
Habit Burger.
Yeah. Really good.
It's good.
Are you? I think you've answered this, but are you more into nature or like metropolitan city vibes?
Metropolitan city vibes for sure. I hate bugs. I don't do well with mosquitoes. I'm severely allergic. One of my big problems with Miami is their mosquitoes. So I'm all about like, give me homeless folks and concrete. I'll take that over to the nature any day.
Yeah, plenty of homeless folks are down here.
We got the homeless part.
So do we.
I would imagine they're more so.
Actually. The capital,
yeah. Here it's horrible.
Okay. So, kubide or berg? I
don't really eat. Well, it's funny because I'm like a burger, but I'm like, I also don't really eat that much meat. But if I had to, it would have to be kubide 100%. I can't chew berg. It's too chewy. It doesn't like.
It's chewy, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I'm gonna change. I had a burger or wings question, but I'm assuming you're gonna pick burger here.
Burger, yeah.
So I'm gonna ask. Listen, what kind of sauce on the wings?
Honey mustard.
Favorite type of tadig?
The macaroni tadig.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
By
the way, I hope everyone has 8.
Yeah. What's worse? Bad tadig or no tadig?
Like you were going in there expecting some fire tadig and just nothing.
No, bad tadig.
That's worse?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd rather not have it then.
Okay. Qeimeh or karafs?
Qeimeh.
Where do you rank karafs in the
the way you made that face, it's like karafs.
Where do you rank it?
No, I like karafs, but it's just like you can't compare the two.
Would you have it in your top 5?
Of the Khoresh?
I'm gonna say غرمه سبزی, قیمه. You could put fesenjoon in there if you like.
What are there just 5? Bademjoon.
قیمه ریز بادمجون, آلو. Oh, you never had
Aloo, Khoresh to aloo is bomb.
Yeah.
Khoresh to aloo is bomb.
Bomb,
Yeah. Yeah, I would say Courthouse is probably in the top 10.
So, and then what is your favorite Persian food?
Fesenjoon.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I like fesenjoon. I like albalu polo. I like the sweet dishes. Reshte polo.
Oh, you guys have it sweet.
I'm the complete opposite.
I'm the
I
opposite,
can't handle
yeah.
sweet.
See, I don't like fesenjoon, but I'll kill albalu polo.
No, I can't eat sweet. So Arta's family and my family are from like the northern part of Iran, so we like the more sour foods. The sour.
So you do the
fesenjoon.
lemons and stuff.
Yeah, like
a lot.
Like
torch
family,
and like
does like the pomegranate paste in the fesenjoon to make it super.
So do you do the dry lemons and horma sabzi?
Yes.
Yeah.
On top of it,
yeah.
we also do hure and lemon juice. Like we do all of it in the horma sabzi. Yeah.
My sister-in-law is like that. She's very much in the sour. I prefer the sweet.
Hold on, where's your family from in Iran?
Tehran. My dad's from Mashhad. My mom's Taherni. I was born in Tehran.
I think America should adopt some torture habits by making people bite into those lemons.
I do that without any
No. Yeah. You bite into one, it's changing your whole night.
So do you guys like tamra hendi if you like sour?
Yes, in certain things.
That it is good. Yeah. Or just by itself, no?
Yeah.
Just like from the little package.
Yeah.
So I just came back from Iran and I brought
there's a huge bag of salati. Like he walked in here and he couldn't even I'm so excited.
That's not all for you.
But it doesn't matter. Some of it's for me.
If you leave it there, we might not see it.
First dibs.
There's like 5 pounds of lavash in there.
Oh
I will email you my address. Feel free to send some over.
No, better yet, you have to come here.
There we go.
Don't threaten me with a good time. When's Live opening again?
This weekend.
We'll make reservations pre-RSVP.
Yeah. So should I ask that one question or no?
Just ask it.
Okay.
You're gonna do it anyway.
Okay. I've asked this to every guest. I'm gonna ask you.
Go ahead.
It's a food question.
She thinks it's gonna be like a philosophical question.
It is a philosophical question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Does it have to do with marriage?
No. Is a hot dog a sandwich? I was like, that's the question.
No, it's a loghme. And I'll tell you why.
That's a different perspective.
That's interesting. That's a good take.
Because a sandwich is between 2 pieces of bread. Hot dog buns are connected. It's a loghme.
Wow. You see, that's so funny because
breakthrough.
You are the first person that said that.
That's first.
Get mixed answers, but I would always say technically it's a sandwich in Iran. But here it's not considered a sandwich because in Iran you do like sushi sandwiches. That's like the hot
sushi sandwich.
Yeah, but here it's its own thing.
That's interesting because even with like noon barbari, you kind of like open it, put stuff in it.
So it's a loghme. At least that's what I think it is. If we're going to categorize it as anything, it's a large loghme.
Yes, a large loghme.
I guess to translate a big bite, a bite of something.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. Where can our people find you on social media?
You can download the KRON On app. There's actually an app in the iOS, in the Apple Store and Google Play, KRON On, KRON On, or you can just watch on kronon.tv. I'm on all day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all day those days. And then Monday, Tuesday, I'm on at 3 and 7. Or if they're in the Bay Area, they can just watch Channel 4.
And then do you have Instagram, Twitter, anything?
Yeah. I have Instagram. It's Sanaz Tahernia TV. My Twitter is Sanaz Tahernia. Facebook, I think, is Sanaz Tahernia TV. I'm all over the place. So if you there's not many Sanaz Tahernias out there. So if you just Google the name,
just put it in. First
you'll find it.
That's good about our names.
This is true.
So hold on. I'm gonna assume San Francisco, when you rank the markets, San Francisco is higher than Miami, no?
Yeah, Miami, I believe, is market 16. San Francisco is market 6. And the way it's ranked is not necessarily the population, because San Francisco includes all the other Bay Area counties. So it's technically the Bay Area. But the way they rank it is the number of households that have televisions. So obviously, the larger the population, the larger the number of households. But San Francisco's number was teetering between 6 and 8 for a bit because there were a lot of cord cutters. But we have more people in San Francisco and all the surrounding Bay Area cities that have households compared to Miami.
So who's number
Or
one?
that have TVs, households
Yeah,
that have
it
TVs.
should be New York
TVs.
or New York or LA should be number one, right?
New York is number one, LA is number two, Chicago is three, Philadelphia is four, I think Dallas is five, San Francisco six, then it's Houston, I believe it's DC, then Boston, and I think Atlanta. I mean, the rankings change every year, but generally that's
you've done your research
in terms of top. Yeah.
So Sanaz, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Our foolishness, we appreciate you,
especially after a long work day.
Fun.
Thank you so much.
And then whenever you're down, in Miami, definitely.
Oh no, I will absolutely hit you up for Lava Shack.
Yeah.
You better put some aside for me.
We'll save some for you.
Listen, unless you come this weekend, I don't think it's gonna last.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, see what you can do.
Live in Lava Shack.
Yeah. There you go. Love you. I was just saying, love you guys. Yeah, love you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you so much
for coming on. I feel like we learned a lot about your field.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Nice.
Thank you guys for reaching out and having me on. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Right.
Salam Mubarak. Have a good year.
Salam Mubarak to all of you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye, Sanaz.